What's up guys, my name is Abdul Nafe and welcome to a brand new course in which we're going to be learning how to make cinematic car animations inside of Unreal Engine 5. Now in this course we're going to be covering everything from rigging the car, to texturing the car, to animating the whole scene, animating the camera, animating the car, and finally rendering everything out and post-processing it inside of Premiere Pro. Now for this course, you do need to know the basics of Blender 3D and Unreal Engine 5. This course is going to be beginner friendly, but you are recommended to know at least the basics of those softwares. Apart from that, this course is going to be fairly easy, so just don't worry about anything else. You do need a good PC for this course though, because we're going to be using the City Sample Pack, which is 100 gigabytes. So having a good computer is going to help you load that fast, and it's going to make the workflow a lot faster. Now the good thing about this course is that this course is going to show you the raw process of me while I'm creating art. We're going to be solving all the problems and making all the creative decisions together. So you're going to learn a lot about the creative process as well as the technical side of things as well, right? So that's pretty much it. I really hope you guys are as excited as I am for this course, and let's get started. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's first look at the animation so we can decide where to start. And so basically this is the city sample scene in Unreal Engine, and we're going to be downloading this. All the pedestrians and everything, or if I go back, pedestrians and everything is going to be in the pack. We don't really have to do anything for that, and everything is going to be in the pack. We are going to have to add the car, and we're going to be animating the car. We're going to be rigging the car first inside Blender. Now you can use any other 3D software as well if you want, but I would recommend you to use Blender because it's just going to make you easier to follow the tutorial. So yeah, this is the animation. Let's go ahead and get started. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to be looking for a 3D model of a car. So if I just go to the internet and I search for BMW M8 3D model. Now I know which car I'm going to download, so I'm just going to search for that directly. But if you don't, if obviously you don't know which car, you can just search for car 3D model, or just go to Sketchfab and go to Explore, Downloadable. And here you can just go to all categories, click this, and just select cars and vehicles. And you're going to have a bunch of cars that you can choose from. Now, one thing which I wanted to tell you guys, if you just go to, actually just make sure downloadable is checked. And if you say, I think if you do all time, then it's going to show you like the best cars from all time. And also you can sort by relevance or like most liked. Most liked ones are going to be obviously, I don't want to say better, but like they're the models which most people have downloaded. So I mean, they are generally better. So yeah, you can just select any car you want. You just have to make sure that all parts in the car are separate meshes. So what I mean by that is basically the body should be one mesh and all the wheels should be separate meshes, because some cars in here are going to be just one mesh completely, especially if you download .obj files. So I would not recommend you to do that, because that's going to make it much harder. So you're going to have to like separate the meshes individually. So yeah, you could sort it by different categories and you could just select whichever car you want. I'm just going to go ahead and download the BMW M8 model. Now I think the one which I downloaded was probably this one, I think. Now one thing which you need to make sure, which you need to pay attention to, is going to be the number of triangles and the number of vertices. So the higher this number is, the better your 3D model is going to look. However, the problem is that the more time it's going to take to render, because it's going to be more intensive on your computer, right? So for example, if I select something like maybe if I select this one, let's see how many vertices this has. So this has 217K, this has 350K. So this is going to be higher quality, and you can probably see if you like zoom in, you can probably see in the details it looks pretty good. However, if I zoom in this, you're going to see that, yeah, you can clearly see some artifacts and some you can see that the quality of this model is a lot lower because it has less vertices and less triangles, right? So I'm going to go with this one. But if you have a slower computer, if you have a computer which cannot handle Unreal Engine that well, then I would recommend you to go with the lower quality model. But yeah, let's go ahead and download 3D model. If you can get an FBX file, that's perfectly fine. However, what I usually like to go with is GITF format if you cannot find the FBX. But in this case, we're just going to go with FBX. And so just download that, open it, and just select both of the folders, copy them, and I'm just going to be saving them on my desktop. I'm going to create a new folder. Just call it BMW underscore course. Oops, my bad. Car. And just save it. And just paste it here, Control V. Perfect. Now what we can do is we can just go into Blender. Just open Blender real quick and just delete everything. Now I am assuming that you know the very basics of Blender, so I'm not going to be going over like the very basics, but yeah. So you can just go to File, Import, and then you can go select FBX, or if you downloaded a GITF format, just select GITF. but in my case, I'm going to select FBX, go to desktop, go to BMW course car or whichever folder you saved it to, go to source, and you're going to see that this FBX file is here. Okay, just import it. So now you can see that the car model has been imported and it looks pretty good. Okay, so one problem is that it has a light in here, which I'm going to delete. Just select it and delete it. And I'll make sure that all the parts are separate objects. So we're going to be making sure that the car has 5 objects. 4 of them are going to be the 4 wheels, individual wheels, and 1 object is going to be the whole body, the rest of the body, right? That's what we need to do before we can start to rig it. And for rigging it, we're going to be using an add-on, which is called UE4 vehicle rigging add-on. So if you just go to the internet, search for UE4 vehicle rigging add-on for Blender, just search this and just go to the first website, continuebreak.com, and you can download this add-on for free. You can just click download the add-on, and I am assuming that you know how to install add-ons. It's pretty simple. You just go to edit, preferences, then you go to add-ons, and then you click install, and just browse over to wherever you had that add-on downloaded, select it, and just click install add-on. And then you're gonna have to enable it. Just check it in this list as well. Perfect. So once you have this add-on enabled, you're gonna see this thing right here, but you're gonna see that the inputs for this are basically 5, vehicle base and all the 4 wheels. So we're gonna have to make sure that we make it into separate objects first. Okay, so let me go ahead and save the project real quick. Car course rigging .blend. Perfect. And just make sure to keep saving your project, because Blender can crash sometimes. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be let me actually select all the objects which are in the body first. Okay, so I'm going to go to side view, and the way I went to side view was hold alt on my keyboard and press middle mouse button, and then just hold your middle mouse button and move your mouse so it's going to snap to different angles. Perfect. So just click this button right here to go into X-ray mode, and now you can select all the objects which are right here, and we can hold shift on our keyboard and select all the objects which are behind the wheel as well, right? And hold shift and select all the objects which are in front of the wheel as well. So our goal is basically to select all the objects except for the wheels and make sure to select all, and if you accidentally select the wheels, then you can just undo it, and yeah. Okay, now just press G and move it to make sure everything is selected. Now we know that some parts are not selected, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the front view, and in the front view I can also select hold shift and select some parts like that. And now if I press this button again, you can also press Alt C on your keyboard to alternate between X-ray mode and normal viewport mode. But now if I press G, you're going to see that everything is moving except for the wheels, right? So that's exactly what we want. Now with all of that selected, what we're going to do is that we're going to be pressing Control J. Now what Control J does is that it basically just joins all those objects into one mesh. Now the good thing about this is that all the materials are still going to remain the same, so we can add different materials to all the different parts, but it's just one object right now, and it's called this thing right here. I'm just going to call this car underscore body. Okay, actually let me just call this body, because the car is the only object in the scene anyway. So yeah, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the body. I'm going to hide the body so we can so it's easier for us to select individual wheels. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the calipers, because adding the calipers is a little hard. It's a little more towards the advanced side, so we're actually not going to do that. But yeah, because the thing is, when the wheel rotates, you have to make sure that the whole wheel rotates except for the caliper, which you can do by just making sure that the caliper is in the same what do you call it, is in the same mesh as the body. But I'm not going to do that, just to make things easier, just to make sure that this tutorial is beginner friendly. So I'm going to remove all the parts which are related to the caliper from the other side as well. Plus, I mean, in our animation, it's not going to be visible either, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so this, perfect. Remove this as well, and yeah. And so what I like to do is I like to follow an approach which is basically anything which the viewer is not going to see, just don't waste your time on that. That's what I believe. Because if you think about the actual purpose, all these parts from the inside, the viewer is not going to see that anyway. So why waste your resources and stuff like that on just making these, spending time on these? I don't see the point of that. So yeah, let's turn on the body again to make sure that this is the front side. Okay, so oops, my bad. And now make sure that you are in X-ray mode and just select the front left wheels. Just select everything and then press Control J. Now it might not work because there's no active selected object here. So just make sure to like select, hold Shift on your keyboard and just select anything in here. It's going to change the color. So that means that's the active selected object. Then press Control J and it's going to just turn into one object. I'm just going to call this wheel underscore front left, FL for front left. And select this. Make sure to click it again, hold Shift and click anything, any part of this wheel to make sure that you have an active selected object. Press Control J. This I'm going to call wheel underscore front right, FR. Then go to the rear right wheel. Do the same process again, Control J, and call this wheel underscore rear right, RR. Select all of these and same exact process, Control J, wheel underscore rear left. Perfect. Now we have this one extra object which we don't need, so I'm just going to delete that. And I'm going to see that if I turn on the body again and if I press Alt Z on my keyboard to make sure everything is visible, the car still looks the same, but now the good thing is that we have 4 objects, right? We have a body, and we have all wheels which are separate. Okay, so let me undo that. So now we can just go ahead and get started with the rigging process. So for the rigging process, first thing we need to do is we need to set the units correct for Unreal Engine. So basically Blender follows different units than Unreal Engine. So just go to units, just go click this thing right here, scene, go to units and just set this to 0.01, right? Because I think Unreal Engine uses centimeters while Blender uses meters, I think. Because Blender works in meters and Unreal Engine works in centimeters. So that's what we have to do. And now you're going to see that everything seems a little weird. And that's because the scale has been increased so much that the car is basically, it's very small, right? Now, if I go ahead and add a cube, for example, you're going to see how big the cube is, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the side view. I'm going to turn on X-ray mode. And let me actually bring this up and let's actually measure this cube so we can like make sure that the car has correct units. Okay, so I'm just going to select the measurement tool right here and let's measure up. So the car should be somewhere around 1.5 meters. That's how much the actual height is. Like, let me actually go ahead and Google it. BMW M8 height. This is going to be different for whichever, what do you call it? Whichever car you choose. But yeah, it's approximately 1.4 meters, right? So no, 1.5, 1.4. So I'm just going to select it and just like move this part a little down, 1.4. So it should be this tall, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the whole collection, right click it, select objects. So that's the whole car and just scale it up like that till it's basically just 1.4 meters. And make sure that it is resting on the ground, like on the y-axis. And I'm just going to zoom in and make sure that it is on the axis. It can be a little above, that's perfectly fine, but like if it's below, that could potentially cause problems, so I would not recommend you to do that. But let's just select the cube now and delete it. And now you're going to see that our car has the correct scale. Perfect. So one other thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that it is oriented in the correct direction. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the whole car again and press R and Z to rotate it in the Z axis, and then just select this right 90 on your keyboard. That's going to make sure that it is facing the positive side of the x-axis. You have to make sure that the car is facing the positive side of the x-axis. And with that, you also have to make sure that if you go to local and then you select each object, you have to make sure that all the axes, all the directions are matching the global axis. So for example, right now, the x-axis is matching with the y-axis, which is wrong. That's not how it's supposed to be. And that's because we rotated the car. And there's an easy way to fix that. Just press Control A to apply. And you can just apply the rotation and scale. And you can select all individual objects and then apply rotation and scale to all of those. Control A, rotation and scale, and Control A, rotation and scale, and finally Control A, rotation and scale. You don't really need to apply the movement. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so I think we are basically good to go. We're pretty much ready to what do you call it? We're pretty much ready to start rigging this, and yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So just open the add-on and select the body. Just drag the body in the vehicle base. Drag the front left wheel in the front left, drag the front right into front right, rear left into rear left, and rear right into rear right. Just make sure that you do it accordingly, okay? And let's reduce the bone length. Actually, let's set the bone length to 1 meter. That should be fine. Or maybe just reduce it to something like 0.7, because if the bones are too long, then we are not going to be able to see the car that well, which doesn't really matter as much, but like I just like to do it anyway. And then click rig vehicle. So now you can see that the vehicle has been rigged. It's perfectly fine. This is how it's supposed to look. And now what we're going to be doing is that we're just going to be exporting this vehicle outside of Blender and into Unreal Engine. So just click File, Export, FBX, and now you can just select whatever. I'm just going to go back to the same folder, and I'm going to call this rigged. Okay, and in these settings we have to change some settings. So make sure that the forward is the X forward, make sure that the up is the Z up, and then you can go down to geometry and everything should be fine. Go to armature, make sure not to add leaf bones, and bake animation, we don't really need it because we don't have any animations in this. And apart from that, I think everything is looking good. So just click export FBX, and it should just go ahead and do it. It is going to take a bit. It's going to take a minute, but we're just going to wait for that to complete. All right, so it has been completed. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and open Unreal Engine. But before we do that, we need to basically install the city sample pack. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to search for the Epic Games Launcher and just go to Unreal Engine, go to Marketplace, and we can just search for city sample. Now this pack is going to be pretty large, and you are going to need quite a beefy computer to be able to run this. So just download city sample. I think it's about 100 gigabytes, so you are going to have to give it some time to download. But once you're done with that, you can just create project, and it's going to create a project for you. Now I'm not going to create a new project because I already do have one created, so I'm just going to go ahead and open that. But yeah, just open Unreal Engine. All right, so once you have successfully created a project, you're going to see the project right here. And I'm just going to open this. Click open. Now this is going to take some time to open, so I'm just going to give it some time. And let me close this meanwhile, and let's also close Blender. Make sure to save it. We might want to come back to it later. Okay, so now when you open the city sample pack, you're going to see something like this. And you can see that you have multiple options. You have big city option, which is going to be resource intensive, and you have the small city option, which is just going to be the same as big city, but like less resource intensive because it's going to be smaller. So I'm just going to go ahead and open small city. And also this folder right here, added assets, you're not going to have this because these are all the assets which I added for the animation. But we're going to be adding all the assets again, so you don't need to worry about any of that. But yeah, you can just go to content and search for small underscore city underscore LVL for level. Scroll down and you're eventually going to see it right here. Just double click to open it. If you have a really good computer and you want to make an animation in which you want to show like a very big city, you can open the big city one as well, but I'm just going to prefer to keep it light on my computer and just open small city. All right, so this is how it's going to look when it first opens. You're going to see that if you go close to any objects, you're going to see that they're just going to vanish for some reason. And the reason for this is because it's not actually loaded yet. Like none of these scenes are actually loaded. And right now we can just see like a low resolution preview of them. So we have to like specifically load some regions. Now, if you have a small computer, what you can do is you can just select like a smaller region in this and you can load that much. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to load the whole thing because I think my computer can handle it pretty well. So just select all of that, right click, and then load region from selection. Now this is going to take, I think, like a minute or so. So I'm just going to give it that time. And yeah, so now you can see that the whole thing has been loaded. And if I go close to any object, you're going to see that it's actually all, it all looks pretty good, looks pretty realistic. Now the lighting in your scene might be a little different. It might be more, what do you call it, more overcast, or like the sun might be a little more towards the sides. And I actually changed the lighting in the original scene, so that has also like changed the lighting in this as well. But I can just show you how to like change lighting if you want. So you can just search for directional light WP2, just like this. And now with this, you can just rotate it like that to change the lighting, basically, like however way you want. But I think something like actually, I'm not going to be doing the lighting right now. I'm going to be doing lighting after we're done with the animation. And there's a specific reason for that, which is basically I want to sort of make sure I know the path of the car before I can actually, like, start to like light it, to make sure that all to make sure that the car looks good in like all parts of its track, right? So then what you can do is you can actually just select any starting point for your animation. So I'm going to be starting it somewhere here, so we can like just go straight all the way here, and then we can probably like take a turn, and then we can make an animation like that. So I'm gonna start from somewhere here, probably like this area right here. Let's start from like this intersection because um, anything behind that is not going to be visible anyway. So we're not going to see any of these parts. We're just going to be starting from here. And I'm going to reduce the camera speed as well because it's way too high right now. One should be fine. And okay, so this is our starting point. So what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to import the car. So let me just go ahead and right click, create a new folder. I'm going to call this course underscore assets. And so all the assets that we're going to be adding are going to be stored in this. So what I can do, I can just go back to to the folder where I saved the car. I think it was this car course rigged. Just drag that in like that into the content browser, and it should just import. Just give it like a minute or so, and it's already done. Make sure that skeletal mesh is checked. This is very important. Skeleton, you don't need to do anything in this, and just click import all, and yeah. Just make sure that skeletal mesh is ticked, otherwise it won't work. Yeah, so just give it a minute. I'll see when it's done. All right, so the car has been imported, and now you're gonna see that we have a skeletal mesh, a physics asset, and a skeleton. So I'm just gonna be adding the skeleton mesh in the scene just to make sure that it actually looks good, and just to make sure that it's there's no like shading problems or anything like that, because oftentimes what's going to happen, yeah, one thing which I forgot to mention actually, you should make sure about this as well. Just go back to Blender, and sometimes what's going to happen is that some things are going to have inverted normals, so that's why they're going to look weird in Unreal Engine, but thankfully we don't have any problems here. But just make sure that whenever you are I'm just going to wait for it to load. My computer is slowing down a lot because of this scene. Maybe I should like load uh like a smaller part of this. Actually, I will probably do that. I don't think my computer is that fast. So from here, let's just like load this region right here because we don't really need to see like that far. So just load this region. That's gonna make it a little faster, hopefully. But yeah, so when you're done in Blender, what you can do is you can make sure to just go up here. Sorry, click this thing right here, this arrow right here, and make sure to select face orientation. And then you got to make sure that everything which is like on the outer layer is blue. Nothing should be red. If anything is red, if it's underneath it, underneath the car, then it's perfectly fine. But like if anything is above the car and it's red, then that's a problem. That's a major problem for you. If anything does have inverted normals, what you can do is you can just actually let me show you the example first. So if I just add a new mesh, add a cube, and make sure to do this before rigging, because after rigging you can't really do it. So let's suppose that this box was one sec. Let me actually rotate, let me actually flip the normals on purpose, just so I can like show you an example. But like none of this that I'm doing right now is, you're not supposed to do any of this. I'm just like showing you just to like teach you. Now, for example, if any of your object was like this, it was red, right? What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to press tab while the object is selected, press A to select everything, then go to mesh, and go down to normals, and then just do either flip or recalculate outside. Just try both of them and just see which one works better. Oftentimes recalculate outside is going to work better for me, but yeah, once you do that, it's going to go back to normal. And yeah, just make sure to do this before exporting it to Unreal Engine. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I'm not going to save it, and okay, perfect. So now we have the car imported, and now we can just go ahead and change add some like physics assets to it, like basically correct the physics assets, just so if for example we wanted to like collide with some objects, we can like do that later on. But I'm just going to open physics asset, and now you're going to see that it is very weird. The physics asset is pretty weird. It's like it has these capsules for the wheels, which makes no sense, and this capsule for the car, which again makes no sense. So I'm going to select all of the wheels, and select primitive type, just set that to sphere, and then just click regenerate bodies. So that's going to make sure that the spheres, the wheels are actually like spheres, which is more accurate. And then select the root, the body object, and then go down to primitive type and just set this to either a single convex hull or a multi-convex hull. Doesn't really matter, but yeah. So once you do that, you're going to see that the collision bodies are going to be more accurate. Make sure to save it, and we're basically done in this. Now we can go ahead and start rigging this car. So for that, what we're going to be doing is that we're just going to right click the skeletal mesh, and we're going to click create, and we're going to go down to control rig and just click control rig. Right, so it is gonna add a control rig. It's at the bottom for some reason, but you can just go ahead and open it, and now we can go ahead and start to rig this car. So we're not going to be rigging the body. We're not going to be like moving the body as such. Like, so you can also tilt the body if you want, but we're not going to do that because we don't really need to. The only thing that we need to rig is the tires. We need to make sure that the tires are rotating. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So when you open this, this is what you're going to see, and we are going to be using some nodes, but don't worry, it's you don't really need to understand what we're doing here. You just need to like follow along, and it's not that complicated actually. So there is some math involved though, but you don't really need to understand the math, so you'll be good. You'll be good even if you're not like familiar with that much math. But you're gonna see that we have this root object, which is the car, and underneath it we have all the wheels, right? And they're named exactly what you named them inside Blender. So we can basically select any of these, right click them, new, and then new control. So we have this control. I'm just gonna call this. We can rename it to wheel underscore rotation. Perfect. So that's what we want. And then we can like right click anywhere down here and click new null. And then we can just call this control space. Right. So, and then we can just drag the wheel rotation in here just so like we can organize it a little better. And now we can just basically start to make some nodes. And so firstly, I'm gonna right click anywhere, and I'm gonna do get control float. Just get this node right here. And the control, you can just select wheel rotation and drag out from the flow value. And what you're going to do is that you're going to write multiply, add a multiply node. And from this, you can basically add another multiply node. Now this might be getting a little complex for some of you, but just don't worry, just follow along and add all the nodes that I'm adding, and you should be fine. And in this, the B value, you're going to search for half pi. Just add that. And this value you can basically change on how fast you want your wheels to rotate, but for me 50 should be fine. But yeah, I think you would I would recommend you to set it to 50 as well. So after that, the next node we're going to be adding is going to be accumulated time like that. And after this, we're going to be adding from Euler. So if you just add this node, actually, we're not going to be connecting them directly. What we're going to do is that we're going to expand this node and just connect it to the y-axis. And so now basically this is going to give us rotation results. And so what we can do is we can select all the 4 bones, drag them inside, right? And just click add offset, because we're going to be sort of manipulating the offset of them, or like the rotational position of them. And now what we can do is we can just open the offset transform and just apply, just basically drag this into the rotation value, rotation pin of all of these. Now I know this was a little confusing. It was for me as well when I was first learning it, but then you are eventually going to get comfortable with the idea of creating control rigs and all that stuff. But for now, you don't really need to understand them. You can just like follow along this tutorial and it should be good. And yeah, so that's essentially our node setup. Let me show you from everything from the start. First thing was get control float. Also make sure to like select the connect the execute pin to one of these, and then make sure to connect all of them so that all of them get executed like that. Let me show you the node setup from the start. So first we did get control float, multiply node, just set the value to 50. Another multiply node, set the b value to half pi, accumulated time node, and then from Euler. And after that, we're just connecting all the results to all of these bones. So now if I compile it, you're going to see that if I select wheel rotation, and if I rotate it a little bit, you're going to see that the wheels are going to just start to rotate, right? And that's exactly what we want. The more we rotate them, the faster they're going to move. Yeah, okay. You can see that they're going pretty fast. I'm just going to reset it back to 0 though. And then we can just keyframe the position of this control space so we can control the rotation of the wheels, right? And we can control the speed as well, depending on what we want. Now, one thing which we want to do is instead of rotating this, we want to make it so that we just like move it and then it like rotates the wheels. So with this selected, we're just going to go to value type and we're just going to set it to position. Now you're going to see that if I move it back and forth, you can see that it's going to do the same thing, but it's just easier for us to like animate and like keyframe in when we're actually doing the animation, right? So I think that's pretty much it. You can add some, some shapes if you want, but I'm not going to do that because like I don't think we need to add any shapes. They're just going to clutter our viewport further. So let's not do that. And yeah, so now our car is basically rigged and ready to go. Next thing I want to do is I actually want to work on the texturing of this car and sort of make it look good before we actually go ahead and start to animate this. So let's just go ahead and start with the texturing.